British staff you may have working in other EU member states, what will their rights be in the post-Brexit era? The EU withdrawal agreement effectively guarantees and reciprocates the rights of British nationals working in the EU in the same way as a settlement scheme does here. So for British citizens lawfully resident in another EU member state before the end of December 2020, they will continue to enjoy the same rights as they do now up until the end of that period. For British citizens who are lawfully resident in another EU member state by the end of December 2020, they will need to make an application for residence before the 30th of June 2021 in whichever member state they are living in the same way as European nationals are required to make an application under the EU settlement scheme here. The exact terms and procedures for making a residence application will differ between different EU member states, and not particularly helpfully, some EU member states haven't yet clarified what that application process will look like, and therefore that's something that British nationals currently working in the EU need to keep abreast of. And for British nationals who move to the EU for work purposes for the first time from the 1st of January 2020, they will be subject to the immigration rules of whichever EU member state they are looking to move into. And therefore, as employers, that's another hurdle you're going to have to cross if you are moving people into the EU in terms of making sure that they have the correct immigration permissions in place before they make that move. Similarly, if you have British nationals who work in one EU member state but regularly travel to another EU member state for work purposes, at the moment, they can do that without restriction under freedom of movement principles, and it's yet to be determined, and is one of the issues that is likely to be negotiated during the transition period in terms of what rights will apply to those British workers who are going to try to move between EU member states going forward. But again, it may well mean that hurdles need to be crossed and applications for immigration permissions need to be made in some circumstances before British workers can move freely between different EU member states for work.